So the Rav says on page Kuf, this is a book called Recholos Nahar. It's one of a few different versions of the Rashash. This is the one that Rabbi Nimrod and those of us who use it think is the best. So we start here, he brings the Shar Kabbanos, and so we want to start looking at the secrets of Purim. It's not going to be easy in the sense that you'll see. So first we're going to read this, we'll just read it. And then we'll start looking at what the problems are for our understanding. Let's imagine that you are a Rosh Hashiva, but you never learned any Sod. So the words here are fairly easy. But let's see what, maybe even some of the ideas you saw in Midrashim someplace. So the Rav says like this, he says, V'ata navo al bir inyan yemei Purim, v'hamagila u'mordechai v'Esther. He doesn't say Mordechai, he says, in Esther he says just Mordechai. U'malos megebes Purim, v'hamishta v'simcha. Let me translate that. Now we're going to come and we're going to make an explanation for the days of Purim, about the reading of the Megillah, about Mordechai, about the money that we give in Purim, about Hamishta and for the feast, about Simcha and the joy that we have to have. Hinin is Barbetz Leinu Bedrashe Nokvedizah. So it's been explained to us in the drashim that we have on the Nokvedizah, the inyan miyata Yereach, and also the inyan of the making small of the Yereach, that we see that there were the moon said, how can you have one crown for two kings? So that she was minimized. And there's a secret to this story. Ki b'kol zaman shel galus omdim zun ach ba'ach kol yemei hachol. Because in the time of galus now, where we are not living in our own land freely, we don't have a base of big dish. So we are there sitting, and Zun is back to back. Kol yemei hachol, that is during the weekdays. Lulei b'shos, let me just turn this page here. B'shos tefillah, but when we're davening, b'shvasos, and Shabbos, so different times when we're davening, and when we get to Shabbos. Commotion is Boyer Sham, that is all explained over there in those droshim, but the differences between the position of Zun. But we want to bring them face to face. So we have to first have a situation where there is a dormita. Now, for those of you who speak Spanish or maybe other Latin languages, I don't know, but the word dormita, which means a deep sleep, is very similar to the word dormir in Spanish. This has probably got a Latin root, this word. Also, it's called the tardema sometimes, which is similar to the Latin or the Spanish word tarde, which means afternoon, like an afternoon siesta, perhaps. But just, that's the flavor of the words. So it says that also there is the falling of a deep sleep onto Zeranpin. Kedei tiyase hanisira, so that the nisira could take place. Tuchu lachserimo apim ba'apim, and as a result of that, then once the nisira takes place, then they can face each other. Kanaz b'drashim Rosh Hashanah. This is all brought on drashim on Rosh Hashanah. V'liyoski inyan Mordechai and Esther koye b'sof hashvihim shel galus babel kanoida. So we know that the 70 years. This is at the end of the 70 years from our exile, from the destruction of the first temple. And we know that that's what's happening. That's the time we're talking about. L'chein az kvar b'meichem hiskil inyan Tikkun zun, because at this time has already begun the beginning of the remedy or the reparation of Zun Kedei Lachsor Apim Ba'apim, so that they can go face to face, V'yigalo Yisrael, and as a result of that they will redeem the Jewish people. Vinyan haschala zu hi inyan hadormita. So what is the beginning? What does the beginning of the Geula look like? He says it's the beginning of the Geula look like this deep this deep sleep. Shena'asa az b'mehem, which happened then during their time. V'zasod ha'tzara ha'atzuma shechoisa az the Yisrael, and this is the secret of the tremendous pain that the Jewish people had at this time. There was a tremendous darkness that came. The Rebbe Zal, the Rav Zal, Chashkazu Galus Madai. So when we talk about this darkness, we're talking about the galus that was in Media, that caused the darkness on the Jewish people. Now what we're really talking about is this. What actually came out of the fact that we fell in this sleep. We fell asleep in very dark times. Because at this time, Zer Anpin, was in the secret of this concept called Dormita. Now let me see, I lost my pace here for a minute. Dormita. So now it goes like this, and he says, maybe you heard this before. He was a really big time understanding of who understood in the biggest, in the most deep way, the movements and the cycles of the universe. That we say over there that he caused this pur, which is a funny word that we don't really know it exactly. But at any rate, he has this pur uhagoro miyom liyom, and this is actually the lottery. He had a lottery. But it's all based on cycles, different kinds of cycles, getting in harmony with the cycles, seeing how the cycles are working. But specifically, what the Zohar said, Ki huv aseres bonav kolim kol eser klipim akitzainim, because he, Haman, and his 10 sons, the 11 of them, they had together amongst themselves all of the root of all of the outer klipos. And he knew from this wisdom that he had acquired as a result of studying the pattern of the universe, he understood that at this time was a time when the hashgacha, the direct intervention of Hashem into the lives of the Jewish people would be minimized. So the word is inyan miyat hashgachas yisbaruch al Yisrael b'yamim ahem, in those days that he saw that this was going to happen. And so since we were talking here about the idea of sleep, so then he saw this like this, that the relationship between the Jewish people and the divine guidance that is constantly radiating on the Jewish people had dimmed to the point of is it dead or is it sleeping? Doesn't matter, because once it's sleeping or it's not active, then it's not really protecting the Jewish people, and this is a time to uproot the Torah from the world. So this is what he thought. So I'll repeat it a little bit, I think. So therefore it came into his thought that these are the people that really hate the Jews and their time was right. So this is the argument, or let's say the discussion that Haman and Achashverosh were having. If the idea of destroying the Jews as a result, if he could see the dormancy of any hashgacha that Hashem had in the Jewish people, now's the time to strike. Beheshiv lo Haman, Haman answered this, Yeshno Am, so he went to Befuzer, then he started talking about the people there and that were out there, and he started counting them up, taking a good look at what he had to do in order to destroy us. V'darsha Razal Yoshen hu aloka shalachem b'havenze. When he says V'darshu, let's go back, let me see, I just saw this for a minute. So he says, Darshu, he said, Darshu Rabbeinu Zal Yashan Hu Aloha Shalahem V'Habein Zeh. The Yashan, this word Yashan, which means sleeping, is the name of their God. Now that's all I have to put in right now. There is a lot more. I'm going to send the pages. Anybody who's capable or would like to follow along, you'll have the pages. I hope that getting it better. So here, when we read through this, then there's some basic things that those of us who are Rosh Yeshivas and that we're learning all of this. He has a concept here which is called Zaman Shal Galus, Omdim Zun Ach Ba'ach Kol Yemei HaChol. So to understand that phrase, you would have to know what is Zun. Zun is another way the Kabbalists use the word Zocher V'Nog. Because originally, well, we can't get to the whole idea, but the universe is male and female. Different, one is a cycle, one is a straight line, and so we have to see how they fit together. And so it's all called Zocher, which is a male, and Nuk is a euphemism for the word Nekeva. But it's more than a euphemism. It really points to the idea that they originally, in all aspects, were one. And if you think back to the story of Adam and Eve, then you're going to come to the conclusion, you're going to be able to see that originally they were one, and then she was separated, and that's part of what we are talking about here. But to understand it in real sense is that we're not talking about Adam and Eve. And so I had a little piece from Aryeh Kaplan that I wanted to read that would give us maybe a little bit more insight. So let's look at his words. So again, if you're able to read page Kaf, you're able to look at the Hebrew over here, where he says, Omdim Zum Ach Ba'ach Kol Yemei HaChol, and he goes on to say that at different times, at Shabbos and so on and so forth, the positions may change. But what is he talking about? What does it mean that they're back to back? So that's a whole discussion. It's going to take a long time to really understand the situation, and that's a lot of buildup. So let me see if another place. So he says, "V'hine kasher rotzim lachzor panim b'panim." But if they're back to back, in other words, it's like you're married, and then the woman that you're married is actually attached to you. She's a part of you, but her back is to your back. What about if they're face to face? So if you want that position to take place, for this to happen, now this is, just say it out, right? Because it's really developed in Rosh Hashanah and many other places. It's in the tefillah every day. But you have to have a period where Zeranpin, the male aspect, goes to sleep. It has to build up to that. It's just it's a build up. It's a climax. It's going, because you see the number 70 being worked over here, and number 70 means that it refers to the Zayin Tachtonim, that is from Chesed Gevurah Tiferes Netzachod Yisod, and Malchus is 7. Malchus is the Nukta Zah. So Zah is the 6, and Malchus is the Nukta Zah. So he says, Zah has to go to sleep, because what happens at this sequence when you build up to the point where Zah is going to actually fall asleep is going to be a transfer of energy from Zeranpin, from the male into the female, so much so that she's going to actually be able to, well, I think I said that wrong, so let's say it the right way. As he goes to sleep, the energy that he was getting for himself from the parts of that it's up above him or inside of him that's preliminary to him, switches over and it goes to the female side. When that happens, she becomes stronger and builds herself up and is capable of actually coming around the front. The purpose of coming around the front is, in understanding, is for the purpose of creating the Nefashos Chadashos, the Shambhas Chadashos, new spirit, bringing the Spirit of God into a lower place. Now let's see, if we got a few more words that we can go through, and then I want to read this Aryeh Kaplan. So then he says, Inyan Mordechai and Esther, it was at the end of 70 years. So we understand the number 70 is really 7 times 10, 10 spheros in each sphera. Shal Galas Bavel Kanoida, so that's what happened. So therefore, as a result of this, in order to come back to our land, we had to effect a Tikkun in Zun. We had to do whatever is necessary. It's the whole subject of what it is necessary to cause them to get to Zun, that is Zachar and his female aspect, to become to such a part, so strong, that she is actually growing and becoming independent, and then to switch over to her actual independence where she could be face to face with him and not just a part of his body. So we shouldn't get too anthropomorphic and try to think that I'm talking about some kind of big being or teeny weeny being looks like us. We have to read the R.A.B.I. Kaplan. Let's just go through a little bit more, and we're getting there. So what do you have to do if they come face to face? This leads to our redemption. So it could be nice if it was like that now too. So this also started with Zer Anpin going to sleep. And as a result of that, when Zer Anpin is not shining on us, like the sun is not shining on us, then we're all going to be in darkness. That's what he says that we're going through. I want to finish up. I wanted to say, is there a little bit, we'd mentioned the Dormita. If we didn't say the word at this time, the Nisira, which is actually the actual separation of the female aspect from the male aspect. Zun is when they are together. They're just like one entity. But actually to be able to separate so that you have two parts there, be able to bring those two parts together is the ultimate yichud of unity. So that we could get a little, I have to have a disclaimer if I'm talking so what's the right word? If I'm just talking so anthropomorphically, then I feel like I need to have a disclaimer so that we understand some background in the spiritual world. So I'm going to quote from page 143, the Sefer Yetzirah translated by Aryeh Kaplan. I also have this in the Vilna Gaon. The Gaon is into this, lots of different kinds of stuff. And it's not magic. It's really, mind-bending. I'm just like scratching the toes, They just have no idea what's going on here. But this man, Aryeh Kaplan, he could say things in English like... God blessed him with this for us. It's really a tremendous blessing that he's giving to us. So here's what he says over here there were different symbols in the Sefer Yetzirah. I'm going to just skip that part. So he says, here it is. He says the Kabbalists teach that the letters of the Tetragrammaton, which he says is very interesting. He says the word Yud-Ke, Vav-Ke, we understand is a tetragrammaton. Tetra, I think, means four. But he mentions it as only Yud-Ke and Vav, because the second He is a duplicate. So therefore, in other words, it's not the first He, it's the second He. Nonetheless, it's a duplicate. What three letters do we have? A lot of times they call it Yud-Ke, Vav. Kabbalists call it Yaakov. At least I do. Yaakov, because we put the Yaakov. So he says only pertain to the universe of rectification, which is called, another word is called Olam HaTikkun. But there's also a universe of chaos, of Tohu. And these are affected by different kinds of names that he could use and so on and so forth, than we could use, actually, to come closer to the Eibshter. So now he writes like this, and we're getting closer to the part that I want to talk about. When a person enters into the mysteries, he must parallel the sequence of creation. First, he enters the universe of chaos, because we know from the Torah that before that was Bereshis, there was Tohu Vohu. Here his mind is filled with confused, transient images. If he perceives the sfirot, they are like lightning running and returning. The sfirot are perceived as disconnected images. This is what chaos looks like, where no relationship between them can be seen. This is the state of consciousness attained through the use of certain letters. I'm not going to get into that because I barely know it myself. But this is what I wanted to say. Once a person is able to see in the universe of chaos, if you could see the chaos around you, the initiate can then enter the universe of rectification. This is why we were Kabbalists, because we think that things can be fixed. And we think that the way to fix them is in prayer and in knowledge of the ways of the Almighty. So in the world of the universe of rectification, which is right there with the universe of chaos, so if the initiate can then enter the universe of rectification where the sfirot are connected and assume the form of partsufim. Now here you're talking about energies being channeled out of chaos into a system. Now this system, the communication system between sfirot, is what we call a partsuf. So each partsuf is a human-like form, very closely related to the conceptual golem, let's say. I'm not sure what he means by conceptual golem. This just sounds too physical to me. The creation of this mental golem partsuf is accomplished through the letters of the name Yud-Ke-Vav-Ke, together with various other letters, as described above. This is the name associated with the universe of rectification, which we call Olam HaTikkun. So we're saying like this, is that chaos, Yud-Ke-Vav-Ke in different ways, that's the Kabbalist philosophy, different ways to break down that name. This is the symbol, this process of these letters of making order out of chaos. And why I was mepakpek a little bit on the word golem is because it sounds too physical. But what he means to say is that an image which is in the form of a man, which it has a head and a body and legs and feet. But it doesn't mean that it's physical like a man. It is that preliminary to us, panimi to us, is this purely non-physical energy system. And it's moving extreme. If you listen to Rabbi Mimran, you'll see it's moving extremely fast. And as a result of that, as one gets more and more into the origins of this system, it's faster it moves until it starts coming back the other way where we are, where it's moving very slowly. Now we are aware of the waves. We are aware of wavelengths, sound waves, light waves. Who knows what other kind of waves there are. We understand these are frequencies, and we share a common frequency, and therefore we think we look like we look. At the incipience of us, because we're men and women, I say in the preliminary to all preliminaries in what is just the gathering of these energies that he's talking about is Zun. To be able to affect the Zun of the Olam Atzilus, and to be able to turn the Zun so that they can face each other and unite face to face, this is the ultimate Tikkun. And this is a Tikkun in the world that we live in now doesn't last. And apparently from the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and he goes into this, and we maybe have a chance to be able to learn some of the Meforshim on this. So when he goes into this, there's a lot to see. So I think as my time is up, thank you very much for listening. We'll come back to the next shir, try to go a little bit more deeply into this material. Thank you for listening.